Because of why I search the deep through endless nights, no time to sleep. The call inside I can't deny. I'll find the light because of why.
Let's dive into a question that I think a lot of people have asked, whether you live in New Zealand or you've just visited. And that question is, why is this beautiful, amazing country so expensive? It's a place that seems to have everything, but man, it definitely comes with a price tag.
You know, this one comment right here just perfectly sums up the whole puzzle. It makes no sense, right? New Zealand is famous for its lamb, yet you can fly it halfway across the world and buy it for less. This isn't just a weird one-off thing. It's a symptom of a much bigger economic story that we're going to get into.
Okay, so you look at the raw numbers and things get even more confusing. On paper, it's actually cheaper to live in New Zealand than in Australia. But here's the kicker. The wages are lower too. So when you factor that in, your actual purchasing power, what your money can buy, is pretty much identical. So that gets to the real question. If the stats say it's the same, why does it feel so much harder to get by in New Zealand? So, where does that feeling come from? Well, the first piece of the puzzle is probably the most obvious one. You just have to look at a map. It's what's known as the tyranny of distance. And that beautiful isolation, it comes with a cost.
A treasury paper actually has a great term for this: geographic peripherality. It's really just a fancy way of saying that being a small country at the bottom of the world creates some built-in problems. Everything coming in and everything going out has a very, very long way to travel, and that shipping cost gets baked into the price of, well, everything.
And that distance problem gets even worse when you add in another issue: scale. Think about it. With a population of just over 5 million people, it's really tough for Kiwi businesses to get what are called economies of scale. A bigger country can order 1 million iPhones and get a great price. In New Zealand, you're ordering a much smaller amount, so you just can't get the same deals. All right, let's bring these big ideas, distance and scale, down to something we all deal with every single week: the supermarket. This is where it gets really personal, because for a country that grows so much food, the prices at the checkout can be absolutely wild. You don't have to look far to figure out what's going on. This comment, from someone who actually worked in food production, well, they don't pull any punches. It points directly to a massive power imbalance in the industry. So how is that power imbalance even possible? This number right here is the reason why. 90%. That's how much of New Zealand's grocery market is controlled by just two companies: Foodstuffs and Woolworths. That's not a competitive market, folks. That's a duopoly. And it has huge consequences for prices. And what's the result of that duopoly? Well, New Zealanders spend the 5th most on groceries per person in the entire developed world. Just let that sink in. The country produces enough food to feed 40 million people, yet its own 5 million citizens are paying some of the highest prices on the planet. The obvious question is, why doesn't another company just set up shop and offer cheaper prices? Well, this number, $1 million, is a pretty big clue. That can be the cost just to get the permission to build a new supermarket. The barriers to entry are just so incredibly high, it basically protects the two big players. And look, this isn't just speculation. The Commerce Commission, the government's own watchdog, did a big study and confirmed that these tactics are real. They found evidence of the two giants buying up land just to block competitors, squeezing suppliers on price, and basically setting prices based on each other, not on what a truly competitive market would demand. Okay, groceries are one thing, but now we have to talk about the elephant in the room. The single biggest cost for most Kiwis, and the one that causes the most stress: just putting a roof over your head. Man, this quote from commentator Berna Hickey just absolutely nails it. For a long time now, it's felt like the property market isn't just a part of New Zealand's economy, it is the economy. It's what shapes wealth, debt, and the growing gap between generations. So how did it get this bad? This didn't happen overnight. It was built over decades. You had the stock market crash in '87, which made property look like a super safe bet. Then in the '90s, new rules made it way harder and more expensive to actually build new houses. So you had huge demand and restricted supply, a perfect storm for prices to just go through the roof, leaving wages way behind. And this isn't just about numbers on a chart. It's about people's lives. The dream of owning a home has just evaporated for so many. It's led to a shocking rise in homelessness, and it's put the public housing system under incredible strain. with tens of thousands of families stuck on a waiting list.
So we've got isolation, a supermarket duopoly, and a housing market that's gone wild. But there's one more layer to this. We need to zoom out and look at the big national policies that have been pouring fuel on this fire. One argument points the finger at classic inflation. Between 2020 and 2022, the amount of money in New Zealand's economy shot up by about 80%, way more than in Australia. And the theory is pretty simple. When you have way more money chasing the same amount of stuff, prices are going to go up.
But, and this is a really big but, other official data tells a much more complicated story. This graph from the Treasury is fascinating. It actually shows that once you account for housing costs, income inequality in New Zealand has been going down in recent years. It kind of shows that the picture isn't simple at all, and these pressures are hitting different parts of society in very different ways. So, after digging into the geography, the groceries, the housing crisis, and all the big policy decisions, where does that leave us? What does it all mean? Well, it really seems to boil down to a fundamental trade-off that everyone living in New Zealand has to weigh up. On one side of the scale, you have all the very real, very stressful financial pressures we've just been talking about. But on the other side, you have the quality of life stuff, the reasons people love New Zealand. Things like feeling safe, low corruption, that unbelievable access to nature, and a pretty solid social safety net. These things are incredibly valuable, but you can't really put a dollar figure on them. And that really brings us to the final question, the one that every Kiwi and everyone who thinks about moving there has to answer for themselves. Is that incredible quality of life worth the high cost of living? What's your take? Is the paradise worth the price? We'd love to hear what you think down in the comments. And hey, if this helped you make sense of it all, be sure to hit like and subscribe for more. Thanks for watching.